45 miles east of Phoenix, past the last gas station and the last stoplight, the desert floor runs flat and then abrupt. And the Superstition Mountains just rise. No gradual foothills, no warning. One moment you are in the suburbs. The next, a wall of volcanic rock goes straight up 3,000 feet and cuts the sky in half. Most people drive past them on the freeway. A few hike the western trails on weekends. Almost nobody goes deeper. But what is inside those 160,000 acres is unlike almost anything else in the American West. There is a ghost town that died 3 separate times and refused to stay dead. There is a 1,000-foot rock spire that has killed more than 40 people who came looking for its shadow. There is a perfect stone circle on a mountaintop that no archaeologist can explain. And federal law prevents anyone from excavating it. And then there is the story at number 1. A skull. 2 holes. A note in a bottle that said he found it. Make sure you stay with us until the end, because that one does not resolve the way you expect it to. If this kind of deep American history is what you are looking for, subscribe to this channel. We dig into the places the textbook skipped, and we post stories like this every single week. Today we are counting down 10 of the most remarkable discoveries, mysteries, and phenomena at America's Superstition Mountains. Let's get into it. Number 10. Goldfield. The town that died 3 times. Drive northeast out of Apache Junction on the Apache Trail, and the mountains loom immediately behind everything. 4 miles in, you come across a cluster of wooden buildings at the base of the cliffs that looks, at first glance, like a film set. It is not. In 1892, 4 prospectors found what appeared to be old Spanish mine shafts west of the Superstitions and staked their claims. Within a year, a flash flood exposed a layer of gold-laced bedrock in Goldfield Canyon. By 1893, the town had 30 buildings, 1,500 residents, and 3 saloons. At its peak, it had roughly 4,000 people, more than Phoenix at that time. Then the gold vein faulted underground. The ore grade dropped. The town emptied within months. The post office closed in November 1898. First death. An acting Arizona territorial governor bought the site and renamed it Youngsburg. He died on Thanksgiving Day, 1926. Second death. A 1943 fire destroyed roughly 60% of what remained. Third death. In 1984, a man named Bob Scoose from River Grove, Illinois, a ghost town enthusiast with no mining interests, bought the 5-acre mill site and spent 4 years rebuilding it from its foundations. It reopened in 1988. It now runs the only 3-foot narrow-gauge railroad in the state of Arizona. 3 deaths. 1 man from Illinois. Still standing, number 9. The Hohokam petroglyphs. Not hieroglyphs. Not even close. From a residential neighborhood in Gold Canyon, a 1.45-mile trail leads into a narrow canyon of volcanic basalt where seasonal pools collect in the rock, and a wall of stone stretches more than 100 feet and holds nearly 150 carved images, human figures with outstretched arms, deer, snakes, geometric patterns, designs that nobody alive today can fully read. The Hohokam people made these carvings sometime between roughly AD 750 and 1450. They were not a minor culture. They built the largest gravity-fed irrigation network in the prehistoric New World. When European settlers found the canyon, they looked at the carvings and named it Hieroglyphic Canyon, after Egypt, a civilization on a different continent 7,000 miles away that used a completely different medium to produce a completely different kind of mark. The carvings are not hieroglyphs. They are not even the same category of thing. And the people who made them, the word Hohokam comes from the O'odham language, and it means those who have gone, had been gone for 4 centuries before anyone thought to give the place a name. The carvings are still there. You can walk up and look at them today. You cannot touch them. Nobody knows what they mean. Number 8. Weaver's Needle, the Stone Compass. It rises 1,000 feet from the canyon floor. Summit elevation, 4,553 feet, visible for miles in every direction. You can see it from the Peralta Trailhead, a lone spire of eroded volcanic rock standing above everything else like something left behind deliberately. Since the 1870s, this formation has been the organizing landmark of the most famous treasure hunt in American history. The legend goes that at one specific hour of one specific day, the shadow cast by Weaver's needle points directly to the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. Every serious search for the mine begins here. Every map centers on this formation. The peak takes its name from Pauline Weaver, an early Arizona mountain man who reportedly carved his name into the rock. Subsequent visitors saw the name and applied it to the spire. Before that, Don Peralta, the alleged original owner of the lost mine, called it Sombrero Peak. Others called it the Finger of God. Since 1870, according to records compiled by Arizona historians, approximately 40 people have disappeared or been found dead in and around the area while searching for the mine. In 1963, a geologist named Vance Bacon fell to his death from the needle while hired to locate a gold claim. His partner was stranded on a ledge and required helicopter extraction. Here is the thing. Weaver's needle is made of volcanic tuff. Geologists are explicit on this point. Volcanic tuff is not the rock type where gold deposits form. The formation that has drawn 150 years of obsession, dozens of deaths, and an uncountable number of expeditions may be incapable of containing the thing everyone came to find. No gold has been recovered. No permit is required to climb it. Number 7. The Peralta Stones. The map that might be a hoax. Or might not. In 1949, a man from Oregon named Travis Tumlinson walked into the offices of a local Arizona newspaper, carrying a set of engraved stone tablets he said he had found near State Route 60 outside Apache Junction. There were rectangular pieces of red sandstone, stone crosses, a clay object shaped like a heart. Carved into the stones were Spanish words, tesoro, meaning treasure, mina, meaning mine, and the instruction, busca el corazón, seek the heart. One of the stone tablets had a recessed heart-shaped slot. Another piece fit precisely into that slot. When assembled, the stones allegedly revealed the location of the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. No photographs existed of the stones in their original location. Tumlinson's account of finding them changed slightly over different tellings. Father Charles Polzer, an ethnohistorian at the Arizona State Museum, examined the stones and concluded they were fakes. The smoking gun was not the language, not the rock type. It was the heart. The Valentine-style heart symbol used in the carvings did not exist in 19th century Spanish iconography. Whoever made the stones used a symbol that wasn't invented yet, at least not in that cultural context. Analysis of the engravings suggested modern power tools, no weathering consistent with a century-old artifact. And yet, the Arizona Museum of Natural History accepted the stones for display. The Superstition Mountain Museum has them on extended exhibit. Researchers spent careers on them. The man most widely suspected of creating them died without confessing. Nobody has been definitively charged with a hoax. The stones are in a display case in Apache Junction. Still debated. Still unresolved. Number 6. The Rogers Canyon Cliff Dwellings. The Forgotten City. To reach this place, you drive 9.2 miles of progressively rougher dirt road from US 60, requiring a 4WD high-clearance vehicle. Then you hike 4 miles into a canyon that gets greener and quieter the deeper you go, with juniper and gamble oak and a seasonal creek running through volcanic rock. And then you look up, midway along the canyon wall, and see the caves. The Salado people built here between approximately 1150 and 1450 AD. The site originally contained around 65 rooms across a series of caves cut into volcanic tuff. It housed up to 100 people. When they left, around 1450, as part of the broader collapse of southwestern cultures in that period, they left behind intact timber supports, mud mortar, corn cobs, deer bones, rabbit bones, bighorn sheep bones, and woven sandal fibers. Historian Tom Collenborn visited in 1948 and wrote that it was as if the people who had lived in it had just moved away. They had, in fact, been gone for approximately 500 years. The site has never been reconstructed or repaired by modern hands. Federal wilderness designation protects it under law but simultaneously prevents the Forest Service from installing any physical protection. No gate, no barrier. Kallenborn warned explicitly that the future survival of this ruin is in doubt. A University of Arizona archaeology student first formally noted the site in 1941. He dismissed it as a Mexican cattle corral. He never visited. He based the conclusion on a cowboy's description. The walls are still there. So is the mud mortar. So are the timbers. For now, if you are finding these stories worth your time, a thumbs up goes a long way in helping more people find this channel. And let us know in the comments which of these discoveries caught you most off guard. The stone tablets, the cliff dwellings, something else. We read every comment, and your suggestions have sent us down more than a few research rabbit holes. We are only halfway through the list, and it gets considerably harder to explain from here. Number 5. The supervolcano underneath everything. The Superstition Mountains are not, technically, mountains in the way most people picture mountains. They are what is left after a supervolcano collapsed. Roughly 25 million years ago, a volcanic field in what is now central Arizona entered one of the most violent, eruptive periods in the region's geological history. According to Arizona State Park's own science documentation, the eruptions ejected approximately 2,500 cubic miles of ash and lava. The ash spread as far south as present-day Florence and as far northeast as Roosevelt Lake. The volcanic cones then collapsed inward into their emptied magma chambers, a process that formed calderas. The largest caldera was approximately 7 miles in diameter. Then something called dome resurgence happened. The partially cooled magma pushed back up through the caldera floor, forming an enormous dome of igneous rock. Wind, rain, and seismic activity spent the next 25 million years carving that dome into the jagged, spired landscape visible today. The original peak is estimated to have been roughly 1,000 feet higher than what now stands. What hikers walk through today is the eroded interior of a collapsed caldera. The rock underfoot, welded tuff, dacite, volcanic breccia, basalt, is the direct physical output of that eruption. Dr. Michael Sheridan of Arizona State University confirmed the volcanic origin in the caldera formation. The range now covers 160,200 acres, rising from about 2,000 feet at its western base to 6,266 feet at Mound Mountain in the east. Here's the wild part. The canyons still rumble. Arizona State Parks confirms it. Seismic activity within the ancient volcanic system resonates through the canyon walls. You can hear it. The mountains are not done. Number 4. Circle Stone. The circle on the mountaintop. No one can explain. 14 miles east of Superstition Mountain, just northeast of the range's highest peak, there is a prehistoric structure that sits at approximately 6,000 feet of elevation with panoramic views extending 75 miles in every direction. Weaver's Needle to the west, the Sierra Anchus to the east, the Mogollon Rim to the south. Someone built a near-perfect circle of stone walls here. Tom Kallenborn, the leading historian of the Superstition Wilderness, measured it precisely. 136 feet in diameter, with a circumference of approximately 427.6 feet. The walls averaged 2 feet wide and 5.5 feet high were still intact. The single entrance is 3 feet wide, oriented precisely towards south 37 degrees west. At the center is a 17-foot square pit. About 80% of the original wall has collapsed, attributed largely to earthquakes. The first recorded in the area was May 7, 1883. Every archaeologist who has examined the site agrees it is prehistoric. That is where the agreement ends. Age estimates range from 700 to 2,000 years old. Proposed functions include marketplace, ceremonial center, defensive structure, celestial observatory, and calendar. No consensus exists on any of these. The site was first formally noted in a 1941 University of Arizona archaeology paper. The student who wrote it dismissed it as a cattle corral, based on a cowboy's description without ever visiting. That dismissal delayed serious academic attention by 4 decades. In 1980, an English amateur astronomer named Peter Gardner contacted Kallenborn after reading about the site. Gardner pointed out that the structure is slightly elliptical. The north-south axis differs measurably from the east-west axis. in a way consistent with tracking solar events. He also noted that whoever built it chose this specific ridge rather than the highest nearby point because this ridge provided the minimum area needed to lay out a circle of this size. The entrance's precise orientation, the elliptical geometry, the central pit, the elevation, the sightlines all suggest deliberate, sophisticated design. And federal wilderness law prohibits excavation permanently. Collenborn wrote, "We will not solve the puzzling questions that surround the origin and use of circle stone in this century. A second, larger circular stone ruin has been reported northwest of the site. Nobody has formally studied it either. The circle is there, open to the sky, waiting. Number 3, the Apache gateway to the underworld." And what science actually confirmed. Before there was a lost Dutchman legend, before there was a gold field, before any European ever saw these mountains, the Apache and Yavapai peoples had a name for this range in the Yavapai dialect, Weeksawa. The Akamel O'odham, the Pima, called the main peak Kakatak Tamai, the Crooked Top Mountain. And they believed consistently that the mountains contained a literal entrance to the underworld, that storms originating here were winds escaping from below, that the mountains were a kind of purgatory through which all Apache pass after death. Collenborn, who spent his life studying the superstitions and was careful about overstating things, confirmed the core belief directly. It is said, Superstition Mountain and all mountains are believed to be a kind of purgatory where all Apaches must pass before or after death. This was not superstition in the dismissive sense. It was a consistent, detailed, empirically derived tradition rooted in what these mountains actually do to people who enter them. American farmers in the Salt River Valley in the 1860s asked the Pima why they feared the mountains. The Pima explained. The farmers summarized it in one word. That word appeared on U.S. War Department maps in 1870. The mountains have been officially named after indigenous fear for over 150 years. Here is what the geologists have since confirmed. The mountains sit on the remnant of a 25 million year old caldera system that still produces seismic activity. The canyon walls resonate with rumblings that sound, the Arizona State Park's science documentation says this directly, similar to rolling thunder. The geology confirms this as real seismic movement, not acoustic anomaly. Researchers have noted this as a plausible scientific origin for the thunder god tradition. Some researchers theorize that the mountain's substantial quartz deposits may produce electromagnetic effects that could affect human perception and orientation. That particular claim comes from general interest sources, not peer-reviewed science. It should be treated accordingly, as a hypothesis, not a finding. What is confirmed? The mountains rumble. They generate violent summer thunderstorms. They disorient hikers in terrain where 160,000 acres of near-identical volcanic landscape makes navigation unreliable. The Apache had a coherent explanation for all of this. Modern science keeps arriving at the same place. Number 2. The Lost Dutchman's Gold Mine. The mine that should not exist. Jacob Waltz was a real person. Census records document him. He was born around 1810 in Württemberg, Germany. He became a naturalized American citizen in July 1861. He prospected in the Arizona Territory for years with limited success. Beginning in the mid-1870s, he started appearing in Phoenix with saddlebags full of gold ore so rich that every assayer who examined it stopped and stared. Assayer Joe Poteri called it the richest bonanza ore he had ever studied closely, far richer than the Vulture Mine or Rich Hill. Nobody knew where it came from. Waltz didn't say. He took elaborate precautions to ensure nobody followed him into the mountains. In 1891, floods destroyed his home on the Salt River. He survived by clinging to a tree. He moved into the Phoenix home of a woman named Julia Thomas, who cared for him as his health failed. He died on October 25, 1891. Under his bed, a candle box containing 44 to 48 pounds of extraordinarily rich gold ore. The ore was sold to Goldman Mercantile. The Goldman sold most of it to the San Francisco Mint. Physical samples, some made into jewelry, reportedly still exist in Arizona today. The story didn't go national until January 13, 1895, when the San Francisco Chronicle published an article by Pierpont C. Bicknell, a freelance writer who had bought Julia Thomas's account. Collenborn's assessment was direct. No one had really ever heard of Jacob Waltz until Bicknell's story appeared in the newspaper. What followed was more than a century of searching. Horses, helicopters, GPS receivers, drones, ground-penetrating radar. Over 100 books. A 1949 Columbia Pictures film starring Glenn Ford that grossed more than $2.5 million. No verified gold vein matching Waltz's description has ever been located. Here is the detail that stops people cold. Geologists have examined the Superstition Mountains thoroughly. The dominant rock is volcanic tuff and welded ash. These are not the rock types where gold deposits form. Gold requires quartz veins in granite or schist. The Superstitions don't have that geology in the areas where the mine is supposed to be. Some researchers have proposed that Waltz was stealing ore from the Vulture mine, where he previously worked, and inventing the secret mine story entirely. The ore was real. The gold was real. The mine may never have existed. If it were found today, every ounce would belong to the federal government. Number 1. Adolph Ruth. The skull. The 2 holes. The note in the bottle. Picture the interior of the Superstitions in June. Not the trails near the state park. Not the western face you can see from the freeway. The interior, Blacktop Mesa, Bluff Springs Mountain, terrain so repetitive in its volcanic formations that experienced desert travelers have lost their bearings within half a mile. There is no water audible. There is no shade. The silence is total except for the wind. Summer temperatures exceeded 110 degrees. That is where Adolph Ruth went. He was 66 years old. He walked with a cane. He had metal pins in his hip from a previous accident in California where he had fallen into a ravine searching for a different lost mine. He entered the Superstition Mountains in June 1931, carrying what he believed was a map to the Lost Dutchman's gold mine, a map his son had acquired from a man who claimed Peralta family descent. Rancher William Tex Barkley told him not to go. The mountains, the season, his physical condition, Barkley said it plainly. Ruth went anyway. 2 weeks passed. He didn't come out. On December 10, 1931, 6 months later, members of an archaeological expedition were moving through the area near the Spanish racetrack at the north end of Bluff Springs Mountain. One of the guide's dogs started barking. They found a human skull. Dr. Alish Hrdlichka, a respected anthropologist from the Smithsonian Institution, examined the skull against Ruth's dental records and photographs. Positive identification. Then he examined the skull further and stated that 2 holes in it indicated a shotgun or high-powered rifle had been fired through the head at almost point-blank range. Entry hole small. Exit hole large. Ruth's remaining skeletal remains were found on January 8, 1932, scattered by scavengers on the eastern slope of Blacktop Mesa, approximately 3/4 of a mile from where the skull had been found. Found with the remains, his journal, his metal hip pins, his checkbook, containing a note written in Latin, Veni, Vidi, Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Followed by directions to a cave on Peters Mesa, his fully loaded pistol. No shots fired, his treasure map was not there. Miles from the mountains, a note had been found in a bottle in the Salt River, signed by Adolph Ruth. It read, I'm sitting under a tree in a creek with leg broke. I've got to have help quick. P.S. have found the lost Dutchman. The Maricopa County coroner ruled the death natural causes, dehydration and starvation. The skull separation attributed to predatory animals. A 1978 review by Maricopa County forensic pathologist Dr. Thomas Jarvis studied photographs of the skull and concluded the shatter pattern was inconsistent with a bullet impact. He never examined the skull directly. The Smithsonian said, shot. The county said, natural causes. The map was gone. The pistol was loaded. Ruth's son spent the rest of his life insisting his father was murdered for that map. The case has never been reopened. The files, sealed for 50 years, became public record in 1982. The location where the skull was found is accessible only by serious backcountry travel. No marker stands there. History records that the story ran on the national wire services in the depth of the Great Depression and launched the modern era of lost Dutchman treasure hunting because a dying country needed something to believe was out there waiting. The skull is gone. The questions are still there. The Superstition Mountains are 45 miles from one of the largest cities in America, and most of it remains genuinely unknown. For me, Circle Stone is the one that stays with me. A perfect stone circle on a mountaintop, measured precisely, unexplained completely, and legally sealed from investigation. Tell us in the comments which entry surprised you most, or which mystery you think we missed. If this kind of deep American history is what you are looking for, subscribe. There is more waiting.